Hi, my name is Roy Chaudhary. I'm a senior partner based out of New York. I lead our climate and sustainability work within the financial institution sector. And I'm really excited to have Mathias with me today, CEO of Doconomy. BCG and Doconomy are working together, and I'm really excited about a broad-ranging conversation on what Doconomy is doing to help its clients. Mathias, welcome.
Thank you very much, Roy. Happy to be here.
So Mathias, really excited to have you here. Tell me a little bit about Doconomy and its vision, what you're trying to do, and what inspired you.
Yeah, so setting up Doconomy, I think at heart, it's a lot about climate literacy, educating the many, enabling everyone to know what to ask for and how. And that is, to me, the breeding ground also for a greater perspective on climate literacy and empowering the many to not only do something right once, but consecutively over time. And we started somewhere around the ambition to future-proof life on the planet. The planet will obviously be around, but we may not be due to our own actions. And in order to do so, we wanted to facilitate the opportunity to lead a sustainable lifestyle. And per se, disqualifying sustainability as a word, making it the norm. So in the future, sustainability shouldn't really be on the agenda. It should be the platform for everything.
And when was the company founded? And tell me a little bit about the journey you've been on for the last few years.
So Doconomy was set up in 2018, but the story is somewhat longer, actually. Working with a small bank in the middle of the Baltic Sea, the Bank of Åland, wanted to substantiate it at the time called CSR work, and probably today easily translated to ESG. They wanted to engage all of their clients in understanding the basic notion of cause and effect. So what we did was many good things, but amongst those, developing the first ever fully automated methodology for spend-based calculations, making every transaction count and posting that on your payment card statement, giving the transaction a monetary score as well as a planetary impact score.
That's great to hear a little bit about the vision that led to the finding of the company. And we are in very early stages of the journey of educating, I think, everyone and just creating awareness around this topic. Tell me a little about the clients that you serve. Is it targeted towards one specific sector? Is it more broad-based? Tell me a little bit about your clients.
No, I love that you bring the early stage up, because looking at what we see today around the world, there is a few front runners understanding not only the responsibility, but also the opportunity around this, with the transition we need to see being one of the greatest ever commercial opportunities we have seen. And what we are looking at is primarily the financial services, the institutions serving many, deserving the trust of the many, but also providing services through efficiencies that has built over time. What we are looking to do is to enable those efficiencies to not only provide wealth, but also a form of planetary health, or going from greed to green, if you may, being a little bit populistic in the language. But I think at the end of the day, it needs to be commercially viable to be sustainable over time. And the sustainability objective is, as I said, one of the greatest opportunities out there.
And what we have found in our work is that the objective that you have with education and awareness, like how critical it is, right? I think when we look at consumers, I think often consumers deem themselves to be passive sort of participants in this whole change, whereas they have a very active role to play with their wallets. And what I really like about Doconomy is you're creating that transparency to the consumer base. So speak a little bit more about that.
Yes, so I think it comes down to, I believe a lot in representation to begin with, see it, be it. And I think transparency, as you mentioned, is one of the critical factors here. Because if you can know it, you can do it, right? And transparency is the foundation for a completely new relationship, where financial institutions, working with some of the thought leaders out there already, I think what they see is the opportunity to become the platform, the hub of the transition that we need to see, deserving a greater level of trust, deserving a greater number of interactions over a longer period of time. And I think that transparency for the consumer is the handrail that they need to see to be able to participate with credibility, not just once, guilt-driven, like, oops, now what do I do? But over time, with consistency, contributing to the change that we need to see, stepping up as role models in their community, but also at the end of the day, I've got 2 kids. I want to show the way. I don't want them to look at me and said, you knew it, you didn't do it. Come on, Dad, let's get this show on the road.
Let's chat about financial institutions, right? I mean, that's a client base that I serve. And as you know, many financial institutions want to do the right thing. Many companies have made a net zero commitment, and they really want to play an active role in helping their clients transition. So if you look at a financial institution that wants to be a leader in this space, what advice would you give that institution?
Number one, I think, and it's also part of what I find so beautiful with our relationship and partnership with BCG, is that this is not a one-man band. This is not the result of a silver bullet. It takes a lot of effort, and it takes everyone's effort. Coming back to your point around this as being early stage, and as it is early stage, this is the exact moment where stewardship, leadership, and showing the way will count the most, and will be also probably the most cherished and remembered. The financial services institutions that we see understand that they want to be an insight-driven provider of these opportunities to their clients, meeting their desires not only to be a silent spectator, but actively participate in the small decisions, as we work with putting leading investor-grade data at the fingertips of everyday consumption, but also in the greater decisions, looking at what is it that my money actually do when I sleep? How do I look at investments? How is my company running my pensions? And what does that contribute to?
And what would you say to a financial institution that obviously wants to do the right thing, but given that we are in still early stages and some of the data that's available to really create this awareness is less than perfect? And what would you say to an institution that's overly cautious about playing a role?
I would challenge the less than perfect, because I think this first step is the most perfect of them. But you're absolutely right. In the data sets will get better. The technology will get faster. What we need to do is we need to provide an opportunity for everyone to participate. And the financial services today looking at, shouldn't we wait for this to be perfect? Hey, we got 70 months to 2030. You want to do the waiting? You really want to do the waiting? Or do you want to get in gear and show the world that how they can contribute and how you can enable them to become what we need to see tomorrow? I think it comes down to relevance. If you want to be at a bank that is relevant, the society that we're shaping for tomorrow, that relevance is earned today. It's tomorrow that you cash in on it, but it's earned today. And the sooner you get started, the better your position.
Let's maybe shift gears to a little bit to the corporate sector. So obviously financial institutions have a key role to play as agents of change and stewards of capital. I think they have a critical role to play in the economy, but a lot of the real change has to happen within the corporate sector. Can you speak a little bit about the role that Doconomy plays in the corporate sector and your engagement with them?
Yes, so I think the regulatory measures that we now see being accelerating both within the EU and in the US is something that all corporates will need to take into in their decision making, into perspective in the decision making. And I think they have an opportunity as well to work closely with policymakers, work closely with regulators, and maybe a little bit surprising, work closely with each other. Coming back to the fact that one topic is no topic. Many topics is an opportunity. And if you are open to partnerships, if you're open to collaborate, that will be strongly rewarded. And I think comparability that comes out of partnerships sharing the same perspective on the most pressing issues is what we need to see. From large cap, mid caps, but also to a great extent underserved SMEs and micro SMEs that are to deliver to the larger companies and need also them to present impact data that makes sense in procurement and going forward.
That's absolutely valid point. I think for corporates to meet their goals, I think they really need the entire decarbonization of the supply chain, especially the SME sector, which plays a critical sector in the supply chain. And I think your solution sort of helps that sector that may be less at the forefront of some of the disclosure requirements, but really brings them within the fold of the solutions. So that's excellent. We are here in New York during Climate Week, and we are a few months away from COP28. If you were to look at the policy landscape and the regulatory landscape, what would your top 3 recommendations be for policymakers globally?
Oh, that is a tough question. Coming back to what I said around comparability, I think it's very important to reach out amongst the stakeholders within policy, in between the geographies, in order to get guidance and steer and a framework that makes sense. And this opportunity, I think, indeed comes with a specific responsibility, and that is not to block companies or nations from contributing. I think it's the policymakers' responsibility to make sure that regarding sustainability as an opportunity, we step up to it as one. We step up to it as an opportunity to become the better version of the societies and the trajectories we see today, to build on trust, transparency, and to avoid accelerating the divides between the North and the South, between the producing and the consuming.
So Mathias, there's a lot of action that's been taken by policymakers. We've seen that over the years, and the process sort of continues. Maybe there are differences in different regions. I think Europe obviously is quite ahead. Maybe other regions are not. What would your top recommendations be for policymakers?
To combine it with the forces at play in the market. If you look at, I think there's 2 interesting observations here. So Europe has been leading the charge out of a regulatory perspective, looking at both on product level and company level, and I think they have done a pretty good job actually. However, looking at the consequences of IRA, for example, getting market powers to play, combining that with best-in-class regulations and the forceful actions of such a large community as the US, I mean, that's an amazing opportunity, right? It's the very inflection point that we need to see, engaging both the corporate side, directing finance, as well as putting the framework in place with regulatory measures that make sense and are credible. It can't be a pipe dream of regulatory efforts wanting to see everything done at once. This is a journey that we are on, but we need to be on it together, and we need to be on it on mutual terms.
That's a great point. I mean, the carrot and the stick, right? So the US has been the carrot approach, the Europe has been a little bit of the stick approach. And really what we need is a combination of the 2 policy sort of frameworks into it. So, okay, let's switch gears to a little bit about your product. And I want to chat a little bit. So for someone who's not familiar with Doconomy, how would you explain what the product capabilities are today? And then maybe a forward-looking question on what does the future roadmap look like?
Yes. So the product that we provide today, with the best global market fit, is making every transaction count, giving the planetary voice a space in every transaction, utilizing what is already in the transaction data that enables this wide distribution and understanding of cause and effect. What is the consequence of my lifestyle choices? Just giving a ballpark figure, looking at the categories that you spend money in. So we're scoring every transaction, either with CO2 emissions equivalents or with freshwater intensity. And I think that is also an important point, that we need to avoid the carbon tunnel vision, and also looking at the many different impact sectors or factors that is coming into play. The better the data sets get, the more granular the data set gets, the more we can illustrate basically using your payment card as a textbook for change.
Now, that's really a differentiated offering. I think we've probably seen far too much aggregation, whereas I think what Doconomy is trying to do is really disaggregate into each atomic level buying decision and really provide transparency to the customer on how their buying decision impacts both their own personal carbon footprint, but in aggregate the contribution that they're making or not. So I think it's a really, really differentiated product.
Thank you. And I think what is important to remember is also that this is not about pointing fingers. This is more about, I would say, if anything, giving a hand, helping people to understand, engaging them in understanding what is important, why it's important, and how, looking at educating them around those opportunities and also empower them to do it repeatedly, not just once, but every often.
What's next on the horizon? What's your vision for the future as you roll this out? What does the product roadmap look like?
Three things. So granularity in data, making the data even more granular. And that is going to happen with regulatory measures and very engaged and committed corporations. Looking at the UX, looking at behavioral economics driven engagement banking services, and seeing how we can nudge people into doing the right thing. And thirdly, I would say potentially what has built Doconomy to, and what I'm the most proud of, is our partnerships. Looking at collaboration, avoiding the Elvis effect of sustainability, understanding that this is a whole orchestra of opportunities, ambitions, and talent that need to play according to the same tune.
It's a very good segue into my next question. I mean, we are incredibly excited about our partnership together.
Likewise.
It's two great firms coming together to, I think, help our clients achieve their goals. What's your vision for our partnership? Tell me a little bit about that.
I think the positive effects of the partnerships that we forged resides primarily around confidence for the financial services institutions. Having banks realizing how much they actually can start doing already today. And at Doconomy, we're super proud of the partnership with BCG, because this also illustrates to me that when two best-in-class entities comes together with such fundamental different background and skill set, change can really not only be done, but can itself be sustainable over time.
Mathias, thank you very much for your time. We are super excited about our partnership together and helping our clients to make change.
Thank you, Roy. Looking forward to it.